Okay, so for this one, Schisms. One of the episodes that has, it's almost like a bottle show. It's like it has a whole bunch of cool sci-fi stuff going on, but it doesn't really go anywhere in a physical sense. It goes somewhere in a metaphorical sense, but for the rest of it, they're just hanging around inside the ship and talking about what happened. As a story concept for a TTRPG, the plot hook for this one is actually one that I genuinely think is a a fit for a TTRPG if you set it up as something that's the result of a player choice. If you set it up as something that's a result of, well, anything that's not an actual player choice, it works fine. Because, oh no, something weird happened. Another thing is that in a TTRPG, you would need to set up a reason for the players to not immediately realize what's going on. So you need to distract them with an actual uh, second objective and have this as a um, complication to what the players believe is their primary goal. Even if this is what you genuinely plan to be the main story, having that having this as a complication to their main story would work in a TTRPG better, I think, than trying to make this actually the main event. Because players are going to figure it out relatively quickly if you actually make this the main event. Gotta distract them with a different plan. Anyway, though, um, the basic gist of it, though, is aliens from a different realm of reality are abducting crew from the Enterprise so that they can study them and try to figure out how our level of reality works. And that is a very Star Trek concept because it's not a parallel universe, but it's a different level in our universe. So this kind of fits with the whole thing I mentioned in the episode with the Edo. Is that the Edo god lives in a different level of reality from uh, the normal three-dimensional world. Exactly where the crew of the Enterprise was unable to determine. But what they figured out is that it was just on a different plane in reality. So again, both of those are episodes that treat space in Star Trek as a four-dimensional object with an additional physical dimension where you go like up and down. And the people in the TV show think of the three-dimensional plane that they live on as the 0 point, and Schisms is apparently a down location, whereas the Edo God is in an up location. Okay, sure. Um, to be honest, that kind of four-dimensional logic does open up a lot of possible weirdness. Because one thing that this raises a question about is how much of that fourth dimensional plane do the Selene actually occupy? I'm going to call them the Selene because calling it Selenogen based life form, which is literally the only name that they're given in the TV show, is kind of long. And while Selene isn't exactly canon, but and the Star Trek Online take on them isn't necessarily something that you would want to use. It's calling them Selene is just easier than calling them Selenogen-based life forms. Whether you want to use the idea of them being servants of the Iconians or not. Um, there's a variety of other things you could do, even if you're not doing that. Oh, also apparently, the exact proper way of spelling Solanogen is in dispute. Lovely. Yeah, A or O. Whatever. I mean, don't care. Anyways, and also it's like this thing here from Richard James is like, we didn't actually go to the time and effort of figuring out what the um aliens look like. See, he mentions the aliens as being insectoids, but due to the way that they wear these uh outfits, we really can't see much of them. In Star Trek Online, the only part of them other than the face you can see are the clawed three-fingered hands. Literally, the entire body is hidden by the robe. Now, whether the robe is some sort of equivalent of an EV suit is not explored in the TV show. And due to the fact that the subspace layer that they live in has different physical properties than normal three-dimensional space, these selenogen-based life forms, under normal circumstances, are unable to exist in three-dimensional space. And it's possible that the nature of their experiments on the humanoids that they kidnapped from the Enterprise was in trying to figure out how to live in three-dimensional space. Why? Good question. We literally don't know anything. Yeah, the selenogen-based life forms are kind of weird in that they're a face they're an hostile entity with a face, but literally nothing else. Like, we don't know their motives. We have a handful of actions that they did, but their motives for doing those actions are almost completely unknown. I can't say they're actually completely unknown because the specific actions they take tell us certain things about what they're trying to do, but it doesn't give us a particularly um, complicated or in-depth view of what their race is like. In fact, we don't actually know how many of them there are. We don't know if this is an action that is being performed by a rogue evil sect of them, or if it's actually the actions of the group as a whole. Well, um, or if it's actions that are endorsed by the group as a whole. I suppose I should say, not taken by the group as a whole, because obviously only a few of them are actually physically there. So yeah, the whole like spatial rupture thing where they turn a section of their subspace realm into something close to what normal 3D space is like, so they can study members of the Enterprise crew. Now, one thing that's actually very noteworthy about this is that their level of medical expertise on doing experiments with what is apparently a alien life form, it's apparently really, really good. Because like it's not like they just like abducted people, cut them apart, and like, oops, they're dead now. No, that's what made this interesting. Like William T. Riker, his arm was cut off and then reattached. Crusher noticed because as like Riker is like, oh, I feel weird. So something feels wrong with me. I couldn't sleep properly last night or something or other. And Crusher scans him and notices that um, the bone in his arm is slightly offset and comes to the conclusion that his arm was amputated and then reattached because there's a plane in his arm where everything is just slightly off, which is one of those things like, oh, wait, hold on. Riker was able to just go about the day as normal uh, and barely even noticed that there was anything wrong with his arm at all. He was able to use it perfectly fine. Mere hours after they reattached it. Yeah, that's some next level medical technology, which again is something that theoretically possible that Federation science can do. But it says a lot about the skill of the selenogen based life forms when they can do that with things that aren't selenogen based life forms. Now, this thing with Hagler, whose blood being transformed into a liquid polymer, why exactly they did that is unknown. Of course, this could be one of those things where it's something that would have actually been perfectly fine for one of them, but not for a human. Let's see here. They also concluded that LaForge, Data, Worf, Kaminer, and Serial Rager were all abducted as well. I mean, those are just the list of named characters that got it. We don't really actually know how many of them it was. Now, one thing that's noteworthy about here is that um, Kaminer and Serial Roger didn't get killed. There's actually only one of them that did get killed. And the one that did get killed, it's possible that his death was an accident. But again, like the side effects of being experimented on by the selenogen based life forms were sleeplessness, irritability, and paranoia. And also, it's not entirely clear how much they actually remembered, anyways, because apparently they were asleep for at least part of it. Also, how these selenogen-based life forms were able to selectively erase certain specific memories is interesting. Oh, hmm. Actually named after a real world person. I mean, you want to use a human name, might as well use the name of a real human or something, eh? Anyways, Serial Roger, also a human. This is an interesting case of someone who is a minor character who we actually see in multiple outfits because the she gets abducted by the Selene when she's, in bed asleep. So she's not wearing her regular uniform. Now, we don't actually know exactly what they were planning on doing with her. Just that Riker was able to um, get her back and prevent the Selene from doing whatever. And to just yeah, this is an interesting note. It's just like how minor the character is that it didn't really matter what gender the character was. Like, oh well, we were actually planning on using a male character. Whatever. Don't matter. Also, this is a character who is in multiple episodes because, as noted here, she's in Galaxy's Child, Night Terrors, Relics, and Schisms, which is kind of cool. Anyway, so yeah, the whole concept of the levels of space and figuring out how to traverse up and down them. In order to disrupt the selenogen based life forms' ability to do stuff, the crew of the Enterprise had to figure out how this whole um, transfer process worked. And that was something that if you're a in a TTRPG campaign, you might end up having the players decide they want to play with that because and it's like that whole like boldly go where no man has gone before thing. Yeah. Boldly go where? Inside three-dimensional space or outside three-dimensional space? Both are options when you have technology like this at your disposal. And the crew of the Enterprise D in TNG did actually develop a rudimentary understanding of how to make it work. So it's not beyond the realm of possibility that you would have a group of players figure out how to make it work too. So if you do use this in a campaign, it might end up going in that direction. I wouldn't personally be shocked about it if it did. And that's about it. This this episode is using the threat of the Selene in an episode is fine. This is an interesting one because of just how difficult it is for the crew to figure out what the heck the Selene are up to, and so on and so forth. That, in and of itself, is rather time consuming. And this is one of those episodes where the so called B plot is just the A plot from a different angle. It's, you have the starting act. Act they're ostensibly studying the Amargosa diaspora, which is actually something that you could use as an A plot for your tabletop campaign. It's just that in the actual episode, it's the excuse for plot to happen, and they don't actually do anything with it. Because the modification to the ship that attracted the attention of the Selene was Geordie LaForge making the long range sensors work better by transferring warp power through the main deflector grid. Did it work? Yes. However, side effect. Oops. Now that's an interesting thing, though, is that the Amargosa diaspora is supposedly a vast region. Blah 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 blah. This is one of those things. I, from a real world perspective, I would actually expect places like this to be well explored by someone, not necessarily by you, but by someone. Because if there's any spacefaring civilizations living inside of it, having such a dense collection of resources, they would probably have found ways to use those resources. But that's a bit of a side tangent. Anyways, though, I think that's about enough for this one. See you guys later.